Hello and welcome to Men in the Den. My name's Eric and it's Friday. Outlander is the story of Claire Beecham. Claire serves as a World War II nurse, and after the war she's reunited with her husband, Frank Randall, who has been serving in British intelligence, and they go off on their second honeymoon to a small town in Scotland, and they wind up visiting this stone circle and seeing a druidic ritual that happens there on Samhain. As luck would have it, or fate would have it, the stone circle actually is magical, and Claire falls through time 200 years into the past to Scotland in 1743. While she is there, she is in the midst of all of this historical drama, and right off the bat, she runs into the ancestor of her husband, Jack Randall, who is a terrible, horrible, fuck-off person. Jack has been fighting the Highlanders because Jack works for the British Army, who have been occupying Scotland and trying to stamp down Jacobite rebellions. The Jacobite rebellion, just quickly, so you know what it is the Scots were trying to oust the British king and replace him with one that was deposed. This is a whole Catholic Protestant back and forth kind of bullshit thing that was going on, and needless to say, the Scots failed, and they were utterly annihilated in battle, and the Stuart king never retook the throne. But there were tons of these uprisings that happened. And as you can probably guess, this is a historical fiction, so it takes place in 18th century Scotland, and as part of that, it actually deals with a lot of real historical stuff, including the Scottish Rebellion. And she winds up in the hands of the Laird of Clan Mackenzie, who are one of the clans who leads an uprising against the British monarchy. So she's in a real precarious position as an English woman in Scotland during all of this tensiony time, and people think that she's a spy. People on both sides think that she's a spy for maybe she's a spy for Scotland, maybe she's a spy for England, when really, she's a fucking time traveler! And so there's a lot of back and forth that happens with her and her character, and she ultimately winds up in the good graces of the Laird of Clan Mackenzie and his men, including a handsome young stable boy named Jamie Fraser. Jamie has been whipped terribly over the course of his life in one particular terrible bloody incident at the hands of Jack Randall, and he's a wanted criminal. And given that the English army is looking for him and the English army is looking for her, in order to protect her, they wind up forming all these weird alliances so that she winds up allying with the Scottish royals, and it's just an amazing experience. It's very much a romance, and it's actually based on a series of novels by Diana Gabaldon. Diana Gabaldon wrote this book series called starts with the book called Outlander, and has gone on for several novels. I think they're at 6 or 7 novels in this series now, and I'm going to put links down in the crotch so that you can find copies of these books if you want to read them. But it's a romance. Not that there's anything wrong with romance, but it follows a lot of very stereotypical romance tropes, including the woman who falls through time and falls in love with someone from the past. It's got a lot of bodice ripping, which, again, is totally fine. Much like in the romance novels, the sex comes along at a point where you kind of would predict it. It's just delicious. Like, she's a very rebellious 20th century woman in 18th century Scotland, and she's got her own kind of force of will and force of way. And this leads to a lot of complications and problems in the way that she comports herself and the problems that they're having politically. And her brazenness becomes part of the complexity of the political scene. So there's just a lot going on in this story. The relationship between Claire and Jamie is really awesome. The relationship that Claire had in the future, in the present future or whatever, with her husband Frank is still something that's kind of happening, and midway through the first season you can find out like more about what's happening with her like future husband. And so she's really torn. There's like this whole like past and future love, and you know, she has moments where she like really longs to go back to the 20th century, and she tries you know, to go back to the stone circle and, you know, go back through time, travel back, but again, so many complications in actually getting back to where she was, and whether or not she really wants to do that. So affairs of the heart, crazy historical politics, really amazing reveals like all the time, like little tiny details and reveals that you never really know until later when like someone says something and you're like, holy shit. It's very much in the level of Game of Thrones in terms of like the political machinations of what's happening. It's all very touchy, and there's just a lot of really cool stuff going on here. Yeah, I would recommend it. I would highly recommend it if you're interested in things like Game of Thrones, historical fiction. If you like a good romance, it's definitely a good one. Dr. Phil, thank you for bringing Outlander to me. I really appreciate it, and I will give it a thumbs up. Well, that's my video for this week. If you enjoyed it, please give me a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please subscribe to our channel. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, and Instagram. And I will see you all next Friday. Cheers!